Tango. Let's start with our Tango review. Okay. Okane.
Money.
Okane.
Money.
Okane.
Money.
Money.
Okane.
Money.
Okane.
Money.
Okane.
Ofuro.
Bath.
Ofuro.
Bath.
Ofuro.
Bath.
Bath.
Ofuro.
Bath.
Ofuro.
Bath.
Ofuro.
Kanji.
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 Chinese
Kanji.
character.
Okay. Chinese characters.
Kanji.
Chinese characters.
Kanji.
Chinese characters.
Kanji.
Kyokasho.
Textbook.
Kyokasho.
Textbook.
Kyokasho.
Textbook.
Textbook.
Kyokasho.
Textbook.
Kyokasho.
Textbook.
Kyokasho.
Konshu.
This week.
Konshu.
This week.
Konshu.
This week.
This week.
Konshu.
This week.
Konshu.
This week.
Konshu.
CD.
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 Yeah, sometimes I can't keep them separate either. Okay. 市民病院
Municipal hospital.
市民病院
Municipal hospital.
市民病院
Municipal hospital.
Municipal hospital
시민요미.
Municipal hospital
시민요미.
Municipal hospital
시민요미.
See, shower
Shower.
shower
Shower.
shower
Shower.
shower
Shower.
shower
Shower.
shower
Shower.
次
Next.
次
Next.
次
Next.
next
次
next
次
next
次
電気
Electricity.
電気
Electricity.
電気
Electricity.
electricity
Denki.
electricity
Denki.
electric light
Denki.
はい。let's see. 電車
Train.
Train.
電車
Train.
電車
Train.
train
電車
train
電車
electric train
電車
はい。荷物
Baggage.
荷物
Baggage.
荷物
Baggage.
baggage
荷物
luggage
荷物
baggage
荷物
はい。パソコン
Personal computer.
パソコン
PC.
パソコン
Personal computer.
personal computer
Pasokom.
personal computer
Pasokom.
personal computer
Pasokom.
ページ
Page.
ページ
Page.
ページ
Page.
ページ
Page.
ページ
Page.
ページ
Page.
窓
Window.
窓
Window.
窓
Window.
window
Model.
window
Model.
window
Model.
夜
Night.
夜
Night.
夜
Night.
night
夜
night
Yoru.
night
Yoru.
来週
Next week.
来週
Next week.
来週
Next week.
next week
Raishu.
next week
Raishu.
next week
Raishu.
来年
Next year.
来年
Next year.
来年
Next year.
next year
Rainen.
next year
Rainen.
next year
Rainen.
Notice it's the same rai kanji for both of those. Taihenna,
Tough.
taihenna,
Tough situation.
taihenna.
Tough.
Tough situation.
Taihenna.
Tough situation.
Taihenna.
Tough.
Taihenna.
Asobu,
Play.
asobu,
To spend time pleasantly.
asobu.
To have fun.
To play,
Asobu.
to have fun,
Asobu.
to have fun.
Asobu.
Okay. Isobu,
To hurry.
isobu,
To hurry.
isobu,
To hurry.
to hurry,
Isobu.
to hurry,
Isobu.
to hurry.
Isobu.
お風呂に入る、
To take a
Take a
bath.
bath.
お風呂に入る、
To take a bath.
お風呂に入る。
To take a bath.
Take a bath,
お風呂に入る。
take a bath,
お風呂に入る。
oh, take a bath.
お風呂に入る。
返す、
Return something.
返す、
Return something.
返す。
Return something.
Return something,
返す。
return something,
返す。
return something.
返す。
消す、
To turn off.
消す、
To erase.
消す。
To turn off.
Turn off,
消す。
erase,
消す。
turn off.
消す。
死ぬ、
To die.
死ぬ、
To die.
死ぬ。
To die.
To die,
死ぬ。
die,
死ぬ。
die.
死ぬ。
座る、
To sit.
座る、
To sit down.
座る。
To sit down.
Sit down,
座る。
sit down,
座る。
sit down.
座る。
立つ、
To stand up.
立つ、
To stand up.
立つ。
To stand up.
Stand up,
立つ。
stand up,
立つ。
stand up.
立つ。
タバコを吸う、
Smoke.
To smoke.
タバコを吸う、
Smoke.
タバコを吸う。
To smoke a cigarette.
Smoke,
Tobacco を吸う。
smoke cigarettes,
Tobacco を吸う。
smoke.
Tobacco を吸う。
使う、
To use.
使う、
To use.
使う、
To use.
to use,
使う。
to use,
使う。
to use.
使う。
手伝う、
To help.
手伝う、
To help.
手伝う、
To help.
to help,
手伝う。
to help,
手伝う。
to help.
Tetsudo.
入る
To enter.
入る
To enter.
入る
To enter.
enter
入
る
enter
Hairu.
enter
Hairu.
持つ
To carry.
持つ
To hold.
持つ
To carry.
carry
持つ
hold
Motsu.
carry
Motsu.
休む
To be absent from.
休む
To rest.
休む
To be absent from.
to be absent from
Yasumu.
rest
Yasumu.
to rest
Yasumu.
開ける
To open.
To open.
開ける
To
To
open
open.
something.
開ける
To open.
open
Akeru.
open something
Akeru.
open
Akeru.
教える
To teach.
教える
To
To
teach.
instruct.
教える
To
To
teach.
teach.
to teach
Oshiere.
to instruct
Oshiere.
to teach
Oshiere.
okay 降りる
To get off.
降りる
To get off.
降りる
To get off.
to get off
Oriru.
get off
Oriru.
get off
Oriru.
借りる
To borrow.
借りる
To borrow.
借りる
To borrow.
to borrow
Kariru.
borrow
Kariru.
to borrow
Kariru.
閉める
Close.
閉める
To close something.
閉める
To close.
to close
Shimeru.
to close something
Shimeru.
to close
Shimeru.
シャワーを浴びる
Take a shower.
シャワーを浴びる
Take a shower.
シャワーを浴びる
Take a shower.
take a shower
Shower or abiru.
take a shower
Shower or abiru.
take a shower
Shower or abiru.
つける
To
Turn on.
つける
To
Turn
turn
on.
つける
Turn on.
turn on
Scared.
turn on
Scared.
turn on
Scared.
電話をかける
Make
To
a
make a
phone
phone call.
電話をかける
To make a phone call.
電話をかける
To make a phone call.
make a phone call
電話をかける。
make a phone call
電話をかける。
make a phone call
電話をかける。
忘れる
To forget.
忘れる
To leave behind.
忘れる
Forget.
to forget
忘れる。
leave behind
忘れる。
forget
忘れる。
つけてくるあ sorry 連れてくる
To bring a person.
連れてくる
To bring a person.
連れてくる
To bring a person.
bring a person
連れてくる。
bring a person
連れてくる。
bring a person
連れてくる。
はい持ってくる
Bring a thing.
持ってくる
To bring a thing.
持ってくる
To bring a thing.
bring a thing
持ってくる。
bring a thing
持ってくる。
bring a thing
持ってくる。
後で
Later on.
後で
Later on.
後で
Later on.
later on
後で。
later on
後で。
later on
後で。
遅く oh sorry 遅く
To do something late.
遅く
To do something late.
遅く
To do something late.
late
Also do.
do something late
Also do.
late
Also do.
から
Because.
Because.
から
Because.
から
Because.
because
から
because
から
because
から
結構です
That'll be fine.
結構です
That wouldn't be necessary.
結構です
That'll be fine.
that'll be fine
結構です。
that's not necessary
結構です。
that'll be fine
結構です。
すぐ
Right away.
すぐ
Right away.
すぐ
Right away.
right away
すぐ。
right away
すぐ。
right away
すぐ。
本当ですか
Really?
本当ですか
Really?
本当ですか
Really?
really
本当ですか
really
本当ですか
really
本当ですか
ゆっくり
Slowly.
ゆっくり
Leisurely.
ゆっくり
Unhurriedly.
unhurriedly
ゆっくり。
leisurely
ゆっくり。
slowly
ゆっくり。
and then the one we added in 出る
To leave.
to yeah 出る
To go out of something.
出る
To exit.
okay to exit
出る。
to exit
出る。
to exit
出る。
okay いいですね okay はいお願いします
The verb for to take a shower
Mhm.
isn't shower or suited. What's
Good
absolute?
question.
Its own verb for showers.
Shawa o abiru. Abiru is a word that apparently has to do with water, based on the radical there. Okay.
Soak in a shower or something?
I would have to look it up to know the exact etymology, but the other half of that is tiny valley, which doesn't have anything to do with it. I think it's one of those things where historically there was a homophone,
Okay.
and the three water symbol, the three dot radical for water is what they call this, the three dot water radical, just indicates that it's something to do with water. So it probably means something along the lines of water like falling on you or something like that.
So that verb
But-
is exclusively in that compound.
So abiru, yeah, not that I know of, because it's not used for ame ga furu. rain falls.
Can it be
But
used on its
sao
own?
abiru.
Is abiru even a word on its own?
What's the?
In the context of if somebody already knows you're planning to go take a shower and you say something like ima abimasu, now I'll shower. Maybe. But usually it gets used in that phrase, sao abiru. Yeah, that's the norm.
Like
Yeah, I
it's
don't
using
think I've heard that
something
before.
else too.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's a different one. Okay, I want to shuffle these a little bit.
Doing some kanji
Okay,
there, are we?
kanji review, okay.
Foreign country.
Daikoku.
Daikoku.
Yeah, daikoku, foreign country.
Shuboku.
Shugoku.
China.
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 Daigaku,
Yeah, daigaku.
college or university.
Yep, college. Okay.
Daikokujin.
Daikokujin is
Foreigner.
10 minutes. June.
Jupun.
Jupukun with a small tsu in there.
10 minutes.
Yes.
Gakusei, student.
Gakusei, student. Okay.
Oki.
Oki.
Big.
Yes.
What's the direction?
That's right.
Migi.
Yes.
Right.
Migi. Right.
Minamiguchi?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Minamiguchi is
South exit.
south exit.
West.
West
Nishiguchi.
Nishiguchi, west exit. Good.
East.
Kitaguchi?
Yeah, it is the east exit.
Oh,
and
east.
it is
Okay.
Higashiguchi. Remember, there's your tree, right? And there's your sun rising behind the trees. So Higashi east. So the sun doesn't rise in the north. So it couldn't be north, right? So it has to be east because that's where the sun rises. So it's the sun rising behind the trees. So Higashiguchi. Yeah, Higashiguchi. There you go. Okay, this is Nishi.
West.
Means west. Yeah.
Higashi. East.
East.
Kita. North.
There's Kita, north. And this one kind of looks like it's pointing to the north, just like a compass points to the north. So that's a way to help yourself remember that one. It looks kind of like a weird shaped pointer. Kita. Not really an arrow, but
South.
Minami is south.
That
Yeah.
little thing at the bottom looks like it's pointing down, so.
Okay, yeah, that kind of looks like it's pointing down south, right? Minami. Okay. And it also kind of looks like a partial enclosure here, like maybe this is the open door. And in ancient China, they believed that having your gate or door or opening face south was the most auspicious orientation for a building. So maybe that's part of the origin for that shape. I couldn't swear to it, but it's a good way to remember it anyway, if you know that about ancient China.
Go. Go food.
Gokun is
5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah.
Blank.
Oh, upside down and blank.
Sensei.
Height, which is
Teacher.
Teacher.
height.
Daigaku. Wait, yeah, Daigaku.
Daigakusei,
College.
College
college
student.
student, yeah,
Kitaguchi, north exit.
yes. Kitaguchi, north exit.
Deguchi.
Deguchi, yeah, deru, deguchi. So deguchi means
Exit.
exit, just an exit, right? It's generic exit, height.
You can't use that day to replace the day
Or death?
in writing. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no. This de only works if your meaning is exit, like in deru.
Gotcha.
Okay? Yeah. That's why hiragana and katakana and kanji all exist, because they are not interchangeable.
Hidari.
Hidari, yes, hidari,
Left.
left. Hidari. Okay. And deru,
Exit.
There we
to
go.
exit.
Exit.
Yeah, this is the verb to exit, right? Just a quick note about Hidari and Migi, because a lot of times people seem to struggle to get those two straight. Hidari, Migi.
It's like the rules on the right.
That's one way. Does everybody know Duncan Pool?
Oh,
Yeah.
rock, paper, scissors.
So rock and paper, this is very similar to the kanji for rock. And so I always think of this square as being like the fist. And I'm right-handed, so it comes naturally to do the fist on the right hand. And then this is like
Paper.
a flat, like paper, because it's like you're seeing some of the lines on your palm. And so if you think about right fist and left flat, that's a way to help yourself remember these two.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Alternatively,
Okay.
take those little I'm getting tongue twisted. Katakana looking things
Yeah.
in there. It would be like left and then right.
Okay, yeah, because this is roll. So you've got roll and right, the R sound, right? And this is and left has an sound in it. So that's another good mnemonic. Very good. I like that one. Yeah. So anyway, so that's Migi Hidari, and the way that I learned to differentiate which sound is which, because Migi Hidari, I used to get those backwards too for a while, is again, I would do my hands in those two shapes, and I would always do right before left until I got them straight. Migi Hidari, Migi Hidari, Migi Hidari, and somehow the action, the motion, the physical sensation of fist versus open palm, combined with the auditory mnemonic of they sounded right to me in that order, Migi Hidari, that helped me get them straight. And then eventually you got to a point where you just know them both and you don't have to worry about it anymore. But it takes a lot of time to get to that. The other thing that helped me tremendously on that score was when I was in the Japanese folk dance club for a year,
Ooh.
and she would use Migi Hidari all the time. Migi Ashi, yeah, Migi Ashi. You put your left foot forward and she's saying, no, Migi Ashi, Migi Ashi. So then okay, right foot, got it.
like
So you
hokey
do
pokey.
that in response to somebody telling you which foot or which hand often enough, and that also makes it stick with you. So you guys could even do that when you're practicing together, practice saying Migi or Hidari, and the other people at the table have to raise the correct hand to go with whichever word you just said, like a Simon Says kind of thing. You could use that as practice with whoever your practice
Simon
partner is.
Hanashimasu.
Right. So, but yeah, anytime you can find a physical way to add a physical component to your practice, that's very helpful. The brain likes having multiple input sources to learn the same material over and over. So if you're only reading it silently to yourself, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities. If you're saying it out loud, so you're also hearing it, if you're saying it to your study partner and they're saying it back to you, so you're hearing it in someone else's voice, if you're reading it and also practicing writing it or tracing it out on your leg with your finger, if you're finding a physical way to act it out, as well as actually looking at what it looks like. If you can incorporate all those different modes, your brain absorbs the information more easily and retains it better over the long haul.
Muscle memory is strong. That's why you never forget. Muscle memory is strongest. That's why you never forget how to write a letter.
Right, yeah, muscle memory is the strongest. So if you can find a way to make muscle memory work for you in how you write characters, how you write hiragana and katakana, then it's helpful. That's one reason why stroke order is helpful, because if you know the basic rules of stroke order and you use them consistently, then the muscle memory of how to write that symbol starts to get into your hand, your writing hand. And then you find it easier to remember. There are times when I would just write first and think after, and a hiragana that I had blanked on earlier the same day, when I had to write a word that it was in, it would just come because I wasn't thinking so hard about it. The muscle memory was able to take over.
Although, speaking of the stroke order and stuff, I'm trying to remember, what is the stroke order for Taberu and Yomu?
Ah, okay. Taberu and Nomu, you mean? Because we haven't done Yomu yet in this class.
Oh, did I say Yomu?
You said Yomu, but you meant Nomu.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, what
so
is Yomu
Taberu.
anyway?
Yomu is to read. So Taberu goes like this. Okay.
I always did the box first and then just...
Does that help? And then Nomu is essentially the same up to here.
So it's like you're writing a
And then
kind
it
of...
skips this step and does that piece. And then you add the other side. Okay?
But
so-
now I'm seeing it's like the box isn't really a box. It's like got the kind of yole with like a little tail at the left.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and it's 1/2 of there's another common structure that's like two of those mirror image, but the first one lacks the hook in that version of it. So this one means door or gate when it's a standalone, and this center gap gets filled in with all kinds of different little doodads to mean different kinds of characters.
Yeah,
So
I've seen
you
that
put,
quite a bit in the book.
oh yeah, you put sun in the middle there, you've got aida, or between, remember, between?
So
You
sun
put
between
ear
doors.
in there, you've got the
Ear.
bun, ear, symbol
Ah.
for an ear. You've got the bun part of shinbun, newspaper. If you put a little thing that looks almost like a tori gate in there, you've got akeru, to open. If you've got something that looks like a katakana o, and put that in there, it's shimeru, to close.
Ah.
There's at least a dozen probably different things you can put in that little gap, and it comes out to mean a whole bunch of different things.
What happens if you put the kanji for water in there?
I don't know that kanji, but it's a possible one. I mean, I would have to look up and see if that kanji even exists or not.
No, I'm just saying that those things by itself stand for gate, right?
Yeah. But I don't know if putting mizu in here actually means anything or not.
I was just
Yeah.
trying to make a horrible bilingual pun.
Yeah. Watergate?
Exactly.
Oh. So anyway, but if you were going to write nomu, so you do the first part narrower. I actually made that too wide. You would do it more like that. Okay, so you make it narrower, and this part tends to get longer and this part shorter because it's the left-hand side of something. And then, once again, depending on which word related to ingestion of nutrients you mean, there are a number of different things that can go here. Okay, so the nomu piece is only one of the options. You put a different piece here, you've got the han in gohan, which is meal or rice, cooked rice. And if you put, I'm trying to remember, I'm drawing a blank on what else you can put here, but there are probably at least half a dozen kanji that take this radical and have other things here. Some of which are not very commonly used in Japanese, but they're common in Chinese. Like you put something that Japanese doesn't use very often here, and you get the Chinese word for hungry.
That makes
So, You know, there are a bunch of things you can do with, but that's one reason why it's good to learn these components. Not just the standalone characters, but the components, because, you know, you take, for example, this kuchi that we learned for exit. By itself it means mouth and or opening, and it occurs not only as a standalone next to another kanji in words like deguchi, but it also is the underneath part of migi that we just talked about, and ishi, stone. And it's also in dozens of words having to do with communication. You know,
word of
words
mouth.
that relate to sounds coming out of your mouth often have this in it.
That makes
Okay,
sense.
so hi.
In the kanji for goat, there's
Yeah.
two that look like that.
Yes.
Are different sizes.
Yes, because you're dealing with two halves, basically. This half is the half that is telling you it has to do with speech, communication. This is the word for speech, you. We just talked about it, right? And if you look at the symbology of this one, it's like a little mouth with speech bubble lines coming out the top, right? Think about like on a cold day, you open your mouth to speak and vapor comes out and is visible. There you go.
And that's the
your
one for
speech.
language?
This one means speech. You. Remember we just
Oh,
talked
yeah.
about that? Imas, itte. And this becomes a radical. And dozens of words that have to do with communication have this radical. And then this side, you've got the kanji for go, which is the homophone clue. It's the pronunciation cue. It worked a lot better 1,000 years ago, but even today there are still a few kanji where the homophone clue actually works. You know, like in go. There are a lot of others where it's sort of similar, but it's not 100% the same anymore. But, you know, like the, this one that I mentioned before is pronounced mon. And there's at least one word, mondai, that has a variation on this where it's actually still pronounced mon. You know? But a lot of other instances of it where it's pronounced something sort of kind of similar but not really the same, like the bun and shinbun, not really the same anymore because the languages have drifted apart so far. You know, if you could take a time machine back 1,500 years, the pronunciations of these similar looking characters would have been a lot better matches with each other at that point. Okay, so yeah, that is your pronunciation clue, go. And this is your meaning clue, has to do with speech and communication. So you put, a word that has to do with speech and communication and it's pronounced go, must be language, because that's the only one that's pronounced go that also needs to have a speech radical. Make sense? So that's one of the tools you can use to help yourself memorize new kanji. Okay? And the further you get with Japanese, the more you're going to bless knowing the meanings of components to help you learn new kanji. Because you just keep learning more and more and more kanji. Every level of Japanese introduces more kanji. And if you know a lot of components and their meanings, it becomes a tremendous help in memorizing a dozen more kanji for this chapter and a dozen more kanji for that chapter. Right?
Builds on itself.
Yes, and you do get to a point eventually where you can look at a kanji you've never seen before, pick it apart based on the components that exist in it, and the context clues around it in the paragraph, and take an educated guess of what it might actually mean or what you might actually pronounce it as, and keep reading your story instead of having to stop and go for a dictionary every other word that you don't recognize. You know. Okay, so let's see. Last time we got as far as Maro shimete kudasai. Okay, and we were getting started on trying to do some pantomime work and didn't get very far, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did anybody come up with any pantomimes
Wait, where are we on
for
exactly?
practice? You guys were gonna try to do part E on your own a little bit. Did anybody come up with some sentences?
I got a couple.
Yeah, you got a couple? Let's hear one.
ドアを開けてください。
はい、ドアを開けてください. So, open the door, right? What else? Who's got another one?
I got one.
はい。
帽子を食べてください。
Okay. Okay, who said the Japanese and humor go together, right? Okay, anybody else have one to share? Hi.
写真を撮ってください。
写真を撮ってください, right? 写真を撮ってください. Anybody else? Okay, you got one more?
本を読んでください。
はい、本を読んでください. Right, right. はい、
カバンを持ってください。
カバンを持ってください. はい。
Wait, what was his one again? The
本を読んでください.
Doesn't that mean drink the book?
No, that would be 本を飲んでください.
Oh.
You gotta
Oh,
work on
yonde, right.
読んでください.
Why
読ん
do
で.
I keep
は
getting
い
those mixed up?
はい
Where, the example, it says like make your own request such as please stand up,
はい.
but that doesn't follow this old form, right? Wouldn't that just be like?
Yeah, that would just be 立ってください.
Maybe that's not
Yeah, just 立ってください works.
okay.
Yeah,
They were just
so-
all old, so I didn't know if that was like the thing.
Oh, that's okay. You can do a variety of them. So, コーヒーを飲んでください was one of their examples, but yeah, 立ってください, 座ってください, those work. Okay? So basically, any verb that you know, you should now be able to convert it to te form, right?
Right.
Even old verbs from chapters ago, you should be able to figure out how to convert it.
Just remember which ones are who and which ones are who.
Right?
So when it's in take form, we don't always have to use the old particle.
Right, it depends on the context. So like he pointed out, 立ってください, please stand up. There's nothing to put an O with, right?
I got you.
Yeah, but if it's something where the verb is acting on an object, then it would be that object, O, and then てください.
Like speaking
So-
the language, maybe?
Yeah, so 日本語を話してください, right?
図書館に行ってください。
There you go. It
There
doesn't
we go.
have to be O. 図書館に行ってください. Please go to the library, right?
パソコンを使ってください.
Okay, use your computer, sure. Yeah, there's a lot of variety that you can do with this, right? Anything that you might say as a please do instead of just I will or I won't do or I did or I didn't do. If you can turn it into a request, please do X, you can use てください to say it.
We haven't learned how to say, when someone says, please do that, and you say, I can't do that with kudasai, or is that just doing masen?
Oh, yeah, like I can't do it or I'm
Yeah.
not going to do it, which is just the
Yeah.
masen form. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so 食べてください. いえ、食べません.
Okay.
Yeah, for now, that's the best we can do with it. There are other ways to say that. For now, we'll just stick with the simple stuff. Although you could use 結構です there. If
Yeah.
somebody's saying,
Yeah.
どうぞどうぞ食べてください, and you're really full, 結構です. That's one of the main reasons to use that phrase would be in that circumstance. Okay, moving on. テレビを見てもいいですか? So let's look at using てもいいです for asking permission and giving permission. てもいいですか is going to be may I do X, and はいてもいいです is yes you may, right? Okay, so staying with a host family, asking for permission to do a variety of things. So, Sanden-san, example を読んでください。
テレビを見る。テレビを見もいい。
見ても
見てもですか。見てもいいですか。
はい、テレビを見てもいいですか？わかりますか？
はい。
OK。じゃあ1番、ヘイリーさん。
Tobacco.
Oh, that one.
Tobacco.
That's right. Smoke. So that one conjugates with.
映る。So,
So,
吸って
sutte.
Yeah.
So it would be tobacco or sutte moi desu ka?
Wouldn't it be
タバコを吸っても、no, 吸って吸う
Oh, there's
Right?
the extra. Ah.
吸う So 吸う changes
Right.
Right?
Zoo.
吸う changes to 吸
Oh,
って
Oh, I
right?
actually got it right in the
吸う吸って
exercise.
Yeah,
吸って
so タバコを吸ってもういいですか？タバコを吸ってもいいですか？ May I smoke?
Ah.
Right? So,
Just a quick question. I put in this little sentence in for fun. I was
Hi.
saying, yeah, あなたは死にます? Is that right? It's like,
you're gonna die?
yeah.
It's close enough for what we know how to say now. Okay, so 2番どうぞ、クルーンさん。
窓を閉めてもいいでした
もういいですか？
ですか
窓を閉めてもいいですか？ May I close the window? はい。じゃあ、ジョーさん3番。
朝のシャワーを浴びてもいいですか？
はい。シャワー浴びてもいいですか？ Significant there. 朝、シャワーを浴びてもいいですか？ Anybody know why it's significant to ask for permission to shower in the morning?
Use all the hot water.
Good guess, but not necessarily.
You use up all the water, period?
No. Japanese people usually shower at night, and in a lot of homes, at night is the only time they turn on the water heater. So unless there's some leftover hot water in the hot water heater from the night before, you're either going to be taking cold showers or you're putting the host family to extra trouble and expense by turning on the hot water heater when they wouldn't normally. So it's significant because since most Japanese families do not run their water heater 24/7 like we do in this country, you're actually costing them more money by expecting them to have hot water for you in the mornings.
Is this kind of just like a cultural thing? They shower at night instead of in the morning.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing. The norm in Japan is they turn on the hot water heater around dinner time so that it has time to work. And then after dinner, usually the mom runs a bath, fills it fairly full, puts the cover on to keep the heat in, and then the shower area is right next to the tub in an enclosed space, though it's all one little shower stall kind of room. And you shower first, you get completely clean, you rinse off thoroughly, you make sure there's no stray hairs or whatever, and then you get in the tub just to soak and relax for a little while, and then you get out without draining the tub, and the next person comes in and showers and cleans themselves thoroughly and then soaks in that water again.
So it's kind of like a home hot spring.
Yeah, home hot spring, exactly right.
Well, that's why you clean yourself first before you
Exactly. So that's the norm, and then it gets drained at the end of the night when everybody in the family has had their bath. And some families don't do that every night. Some families, they expect you to just do the showering part most nights, and they'll only fill the tub sometimes. And other families will fill the tub every night, and everybody takes turns, and people who don't feel like getting in the water after they've showered don't have to. But it's there for however many people are going to use it that night. And some families, if they have little ones, will only fill it a little ways with lukewarm water, what they call lukewarm, what we would call hot, for the little kids to get their bath first.
So the water
And then they'll fill it up to scorching for the grown-ups later in the night.
Like, how hot are we talking here, though?
Sometimes they would have a floating thermometer in it, and I remember it hitting 120.
Oh my god.
Whoa.
One
Yeah.
of the showers at the hotel we stayed at
Like
was
scorching.
for S's and G's before we left. I turned it all the way up because I barely even got it close to how high it would go.
Yeah.
And at the very end, the water was so hot I couldn't even
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
It burned.
Hot pink skin
Ridiculous.
is common getting out of a Japanese tub.
Wow. That hot, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, some people like it that hot, some people don't. I quickly learned an important vocabulary word. This is an E adjective, nurui. Nurui means lukewarm. That's by Japanese standards. Nurui is around 100, 105, which was a good temp for me. But Japanese people consider that lukewarm.
Wow.
Yeah. My host family's 5-year-old could do that temperature.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And you said 100, 105 degrees
Somewhere
Fahrenheit?
around there, Fahrenheit, yeah.
Well, they use Celsius there, don't they?
Yeah, they use Celsius, so that's why it's an approximate conversion.
Yeah, it's like 37, 38 probably.
Yeah. Yeah, high 30s or 40 was nurui. 40 plus was atsui.
Or insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I like warm water, but I'm not sure if I'd be able to say that.
Yeah. So, and hot springs sometimes have multiple pools at multiple temperatures. So you can dip your toe in and see which one you like.
Oh, that's good.
So, okay, so that's why asa shawa o abiru is a significant question. Okay, getting back to the grammar. So, 4番, Zaku-san.
Oh, okay. Let's see if I'm, because I got the numbers mixed up on some of these exercises. So, osoku, osoku, I can't read my own mind.
Kaite.
Osoku kaite mo ii desu ka?
はい、遅く帰ってもいいですか? Again, especially for young single people, a lot of Japanese homes have a curfew. So that's one reason why you might be
Yeah.
asking permission. 遅く帰ってもいいですか? Is it okay for me to come home late because there might be a curfew involved? Also, if you're too late, you might miss the last bus or train home and have to take an exorbitantly expensive taxi ride.
So taxis are
that's
really expensive, huh?
ridiculous. Think New York times 2.
Ah.
Yeah. So
How late do the buses and trains usually run?
usually the last train for a given route will end somewhere around the midnight mark, depending on which stop you have to get to. And then the last bus will usually leave from the train station, assuming that the last train to get to that station is on time. The bus will usually leave like 5 minutes after that. So if your train is late and your bus is already gone, you're out of luck. You might be walking home from the train station, which might be a long walk.
Wow.
Or if you miss the train connection you needed, you could be stuck someplace. And yeah, taxi is not the ideal way to get around in the big cities in Japan because of the expense.
Wow.
So yeah, I knew friends in Japan who would decide they wanted to go out clubbing or whatever, and they would have to decide ahead of time, are we going to come back at midnight, or are we going to stay out dancing till dawn and come back on the early morning commuter train with
Probably cheaper to get a car than take a cab.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or I mean, rent a room.
Yeah.
They have to pay yearly for cars, right? That's every time when I was there.
I don't know. I don't know that much about cars because I never drove one when I lived in Japan. I used public transit all the
Because I
time.
asked his mom why there were so many minivans. And she
Oh.
said that they have to pay yearly just to own a car, and it's cheaper to own vans, like minivans.
Oh,
So
you
everybody
like
had
taxes?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, okay.
like car
That's
tax.
interesting.
But because of emissions, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but because when I was there, small cars were the thing because parking is such a problem. So like the smart car had already come out in Japan long before it came out here. and people were loving it because they could park it.
Yeah.
I think that's
Perpendicular
also,
parking.
I think that's also why motor scooters are so popular there.
Really?
Even more so than
Mopeds.
motorcycles, the little putt-putt motor scooters that, you know, that are kind of slow, they're everywhere in Japan. Yeah, and again, much easier to park. You can put it on the darn sidewalk if you have to, you know.
Yeah.
So, anyway, moving on. So, Cassie-san, 5番お願いします. Oh, did I skip BZ?
Yes.
いや、どうぞ、BZ さん、5番。
友達を連れてきてもいいですか？
はい。いいですね。そして6番、キャシーさん。
音楽を切ってもいいですか？
はい。聞いてもいいですか？ Make sure your pronunciation is clear. 音楽を聞いてもいいですか as opposed to 切って or 切って。Okay. So, 音楽を聞いてもいいですか？はい。そして7番、ナンバーさん。
夜ですか？
出かけ
Oh, sorry. 出かけてもいいです。
もいいです
もういいです。
か。はい。そう。もう一度。夜出かけてもいいですか？もう一度どうぞ。Say it one more time for me.
Okay. 夜出かけて
出かけて。
出かけてもいいですか？
はい。いいですね。
And that
夜出
means
かけて
what?
もいいですか？
Go out at night?
Is it okay to go out at night? So here again, we're running into social norms. The idea that it might not be okay with your host family for you to go out partying at night. You know, they might expect you to come home from school, eat dinner with the family, and stay in and be studying. And they might think it's not acceptable for a young single person to be going out at night.
Well,
Yeah.
how would school go for, you know?
What's that?
How would the school go in Japan?
School, it depends. Most students have after-school school also,
Okay.
juku, and so they
Well,
might
like
not,
cram school or
Yeah,
extracurricular?
cram school.
Oh, okay.
or extracurricular sometimes. It depends on the person, but most high school students, in particular, basically are in school right up until dinner time.
Wow.
And then they come home in time to eat, and then they're sitting at their desk studying until they just cannot study anymore, and then they go get a few hours sleep and go back to school the next morning. That's like a typical high school routine.
And they still wake up early in the morning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and they're probably up at 6 to get ready and head off to school because with using public transit to get to and from school, it takes longer. And so you will see them zonked out on their train and waking up like this, like as the doors are opening for their stop.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing how well they learn how to
Max
wake up just in time to get off at their stop. Not just the students, but the businessmen too.
We wouldn't think
The
they'd be sleep
commuters.
deprived or something.
I guess
Yeah.
that would explain, I remember hearing something before about that cultural norm over there in Japan where it's okay that you can just sleep on someone's shoulder, even if they're a stranger.
Yeah, it happens, whether it's okay or not.
Yeah.
Invading a stranger's personal space is not as big a deal in Japan as it is here. You know, you might get your toe stepped on and not even get an apology. And do not wear a backpack in a crowded train. Take it off and put it between your ankles if you have to stand, or in your lap if you get lucky enough to get a seat. But if you're standing with a backpack on, that is going to be somebody's pillow. The person behind you will be very happy, but your shoulders will not be.
What happened to you?
Yes.
I learned that personal space thing was sumimasen for
Yeah.
like here. I mean, if you're even roughly getting close to somebody when you pass them, they'll say excuse me. But
Yeah.
there, like I
Yeah.
went to slide past somebody and it was gonna be kind of close, so
Yeah.
I just said excuse me, and they like stopped and looked at me and put their stuff down and walked around to the other side. So I
Wow.
could walk by. And I was
Yeah.
like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
there was like something wrong.
Yeah. A lot of times in Japan, I used to see people not actually say sumimasen, but make a cutting motion with their hand as they squeeze through. And that was like, I need to get through here I come. And they would do that, especially if they were interrupting a conversation. Like if two people were standing here having a conversation, they would do this and bow a little bit as they went through to say, sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but I need to get through here. And there's no other space to get around you guys.
Just like,
Yeah, so I don't know if that was more of a regional thing or not, because I remember mostly seeing it when I lived in the small town. So that might be a sort of a regional gesture rather than a national one. But yeah, very, very different ideas of personal space. And yeah, a lot of complaints on crowded trains from women about men touching them in ways that are not appropriate, no matter what culture you're from. But they can get away with it because nobody can tell who did it.
There were signs for it all over the stairs and the escalators
Yeah.
to be careful
Yeah.
about people sneaking phones. So
Yes. Yeah, that's the
all
other.
over the place.
Yeah.
what, like pickpockets?
No, like, yeah, looking up skirts with phones on the escalators.
all over the stairways, like completely
Yeah.
the whole side of the wall. So
Yeah, because a lot of Japanese women like to dress up for going out, even if they're not working that day. They like to dress nice just to go out shopping and stuff. And so a lot of Japanese women in above-the-knee skirts are concerned now about going up escalators, going up stairways, because there are creeps out there with cameras.
And that explains so many anime cliches all in one go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they even have words for it, like skibbit, which is like creep, lecher, Yeah, so, okay, 次、8番、whose turn is it? はい、鳥間さん。
パスカの使ってもいいですか？
Okay, パソコン。
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 はい、パソコンを使ってもいいですか？ Try it one more time.
パソコン。パソコン。
パソコン。
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 I'm cursing right now. パソコン。
はい。
You stop.
No, it's funny.
Think King Kong, except no
使っ
G.
てもいいですか？はい。パソコンを使ってもいいですか？
I'm seeing myself in the mirror doing this. for
パソ
hours.
コン
That's
を
amazing.
パソコン。
パソコンを使ってもいいですか？
はい。There you go. Yeah, パソコン. It's from computer, the Japanese way of
Yeah.
pronouncing computer.
Sound like a flash
So-
version of personal computer, like Passol.
Yeah, パソコン.
Yeah,
Wait,
like start to
well,
say.
if you-
So cool.
a lot of these katakana words are coming from the long versions, but they abbreviated them. So, pa, so, na, ru, pasonaru, and then kon,
Computer.
yeah, kyu, ta, like that. But pasonaru computer is way too much of a mouthful, right? Nobody wants to say all that for PC, right? So they
So wait,
shortened it by getting rid of the naru and the puta.
So why don't they just?
Pasokon.
So why don't they just go with PG or something?
They may by now. It's possible that it's changed again. Don't forget, it takes time for a textbook to get published. So even though
Right.
this is a relatively new book, it was several years in the editing, even before it was published, probably. So the pasokon may still be in use, but it may have also been supplanted by PC, which would be like that. But you would have to ask somebody like Hitoshi, who's been in Japan more recently than me,
Right,
about
right.
that.
Isn't it they already did Shidi, so.
Speaking of like
Yeah.
shortening,
Hi.
I hear John a lot at the end of a sentence. Is that
Ah.
a very short form of Janai?
Yes. It's not even katakana, it's hiragana. Janai is standard for casual form of janai desu, right? And jan is Tokyo dialect short form, basically. It's like a Tokyo dialect contraction. So, omoshiroi janai it's interesting, don't you think? Okay, which is already slang because it should be omoshirokunai, but they're putting a comma in there. Omoshiroi janai,
Yeah.
and then omoshiroi jan.
Yeah, I heard that.
Cool, don't you think?
Yeah.
Genki works better because that's following the grammar rule. Genki janai. Like you see a little kid doing crazy stuff. Wow, genki jan.
He sure is energetic.
Yeah, he sure is energetic, don't you think? Something like that. Yeah, or even more commonly probably hen means strange, henna. Yeah, so hen janai. Isn't that strange? So henjan,
Okay, that makes sense. I just heard that
Yeah.
a lot. And I never-
Yeah, nantoka jan. Yeah, it's a contraction of janai that is very much an Eastern, like Kanto area dialect slang, as opposed to other parts of Japan where they do different things to janai to turn it into their own slang.
Yay.
So, yeah, if you feel like knowing about it more, ask Hitoshi sometimes, because he speaks a different dialect. He speaks Osaka Ben, Kansai Ben, which is very different from the Kanto region, the Tokyo region.
It makes sense now because sometimes when I try to look up things that I don't get from his text, I can't find anything about it. Probably because it's a dialect word that I...
Yeah, he is bidialectal. He's fluent in both, but I think he doesn't always realize when he's slipped over into dialect. Yeah, just like native speakers of English might use an idiom without realizing that it's an idiom. You just take it so for granted, like the phrase "take it for granted." That's an idiom. Somebody who only speaks very literal English and is a beginner in English might not have a clue what that means. And you use it without even thinking about it.
What was
Right?
that about shooting birds?
Yeah. Okay, so 9番、どうぞ、サンドリンさん。
自転車を借りてもいいですか？
はい、自転車を借りてもいいですか？いいですね。Okay, so does everybody understand the concept basically?
I
Okay, so let's do part B. You're in class, you realize you need to go to the bathroom as soon as possible.
So what that means is, like, すみません、トイレに行ってもいいですか?
Perfect. Right? Okay, 2番, you're in class, you feel sick and want to go home.
すいません、帰ってもいいですか?
Okay, there you go. 帰ってもいいですか? Or 家に帰ってもいいですか? But you don't have to put in 家に because 帰る already implies
Home.
going home.
Yeah.
So 帰ってもいいですか? May I return home? 3番, Joe, you forgot your homework. You want to bring it tomorrow.
明日塾代を持ってくていいです。
Okay. 持ってくる changes to
くて
持ってきて.
きて
Yeah, 持ってきて.
持ってきてもいいですか？
There you go. 明日宿題を持ってきてもいいですか? Okay. じゃあ、ザックさん.
Alright.
You want to ask me a question, but you can't figure out how to say it in Japanese?
Let's see.
Maybe you need to ask me in English, for
No, it's
example?
just that
Yeah.
I thought that was you going out the door.
No.
I was like, what? So, 英語を話してもういいですか?
はい、英語を話してもいいですか? Or 英語で聞いてもいいですか? May I ask it in English or may I speak
Wait,
English?
what was
Either
that
one.
last one again?
英語を話してもいいですか works, right? But you can also do 英語で by means of English. 聞いて, let's ask, right? 聞いてもいいですか? Like that. 英語で聞いてもいいですか? May I ask in English?
Wait, hold on, wait. So, 英語 is actually using the hiragana?
Well, you guys haven't learned the kanji for it yet.
It's just that I wrote it in katakana is all, so.
No, eigo should be in kanji normally.
Oh.
But if
okay.
it's kanji that we haven't learned yet,
We can
you're
do-
still writing it in hiragana.
Because I couldn't remember if it was hiragana, katakana, or whatever.
Eigo de kite mo ii desu ka?
聞いてもいいです。
Kite mo ii desu ka? Yeah. Eigo in kanji looks like this.
So, kite.
And it is an exception in the sense that many of the foreign languages, the country part of the term is in katakana. But the A is actually this kanji, in eigo. And this is a kanji that is used to represent England when they want to use one kanji space in a headline instead of spelling out igirisu, which takes up 4 spaces. Okay, so there's one like that for America, but it doesn't get used for American language because that's not a proper term,
Yeah.
right? We speak English here, even though some of us speak more American than others. So, but technically we speak English. So, 英語で聞いてもいいですか? Okay, じゃあ BZ さん、どうぞ。5番ですね. You've run into a celebrity, you have a camera, so you want to take a picture with them, right?
本当にいますか？写真を撮ってもいいですか？
はい。写真を撮ってもいいですか? There you go. じゃあ6番、カシさん。
電気をつけてもいいですか？
はい。電気をつけてもいいですか? May I turn on a light? Okay. いいですか? Okay, so now this next piece, you're going to be asking someone for permission, and they're going to either give you permission or say, please don't. Okay, so Amba-san to Durima-san, Amber, can you read part A, the person asking the question, and Durima-san, part B, read both answers so we have examples of both.
Example.
はい。
タバコを吸ってもいいですか？
もういいですか?
I'm sorry.
もういいですか？
はい。タバコを吸ってもいいですか?
何？
どうぞ。
いいですよ。いいですよ。どうぞ。
Okay.
すみません。ちょっと。
Okay, so those are options. Okay, so いいですよ is one option. Or どうぞ, that's another option. Right? Or すみません. You can just say that and nothing else. And that gives the answer of, yeah, I really don't want you to, sorry. Or ちょっと. That by itself conveys, I really don't want you to do that.
Which would be more polite to use? In context?
すみません is probably the politest option, I would guess, although ちょっと isn't bad. That works too. Yeah. It is very awkward in Japanese culture to tell somebody to please not do something or to deny permission for something if you're not the one in the authority position. If you're equals, it's a little less awkward because you're friends. But like if you're in a subordinate position to the other person, you almost can't say no. It's really, really awkward. I remember my boss asking, is it okay if I smoke? And I felt like I couldn't tell him no, even though I really wanted to. Because he was my boss. So like even in the car or in a personal home instead of at work, I still didn't feel comfortable telling him I didn't want him to smoke around me because of the culture, you know. And he could tell that I didn't really like it that much, so he would like open the window and try to, you know, smoke out the window. But it doesn't really help that much in a car.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was very uncomfortable. and I got a lot of sore throats. But, it's very difficult in
Which
Japanese
does
culture.
bring up the thing, how widespread is smoking there in Japan?
Extremely.
It's like, yeah. It's
Yeah,
like
Because I remember I visited like Switzerland and like Zurich and stuff. There's so much smoke there.
yeah, it's the same all around Europe. It's crazy
Yeah.
in there.
not just
Yeah,
that,
it's all over the place in Japan. I would have to guess probably like 75 or 80% of adult men smoke.
Jeez.
Oh,
That
wow.
seems right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
So is that why
it's
you
much
hold-
less common among women, but even among women it happens fairly frequently.
So is that part of the reason why you see some people wearing those like doctor's masks or something?
That is usually because the person wearing it has a cold and they're trying to not give it to everybody.
Ah.
Yeah, so you will see people wearing the things that look like surgical masks. Mostly it's that they feel like they're probably contagious and they're trying to not pass it along to the other million people in their immediate vicinity.
Yeah. It's not definitely going to help with respiration or anything.
What's that?
TB was an issue too for a while, wasn't it?
That was a long time ago. Yeah, I don't think that's an issue anymore. But maybe that might be when those things caught on and then it just sort of stayed because it's a politeness thing to not be like coughing and sneezing into other people's faces.
Yeah.
And they're a lot more conscious of wanting to be polite about that than we are in this country.
And it's not like those
You know.
those masks would help with respiration or anything. It's just kind of just to block stuff.
Yeah, it's just, the goal is just to try to block the nasties that are coming out of your nose and mouth when you sneeze or whatever, that it won't go to the other people.
But can you actually say firsthand how effective those things are for blocking out cigarette smoke?
They don't help much for cigarette smoke. They can keep like road dust and stuff out a little bit. It's helpful for that. If you're driving on a dusty dirt road, then yeah, having one of those
Yeah,
on
that
might
makes
help
sense.
you breathe a little better, but they're not that much help for cigarette smoke. Yeah.
So would it be
Okay.
back to what we were talking about? Like just saying sumimasen, would it be wrong to add the hakemasen from before, like sutte hakemasen?
吸ってはいけません。すみません。If it's against the rules in a particular place, タバコ吸ってはいけません works there. Yeah, after the sumimasen, if you're trying to be polite about it. So like, if there's a sign you can point to that clearly says no smoking, すみません。ここはタバコを吸ってはいけません. You know, I'm sorry, but right here you're not allowed to smoke. But if it's just like somebody's in your home or your car and they have their cigarette pack out already, タバコ吸ってもいいですか? すみません. By itself is probably politer than much else you could say to add to that. If you were going to add anything, it would need to be probably something along the lines of an excuse for why you don't want them to. You know, like, すみません.
My mom has asthma.
アレルギーがあります or something like that. Allergy is allergies. So if you're allergic to smoke like I am, you can use that as your excuse.
So how polite really? Because I know tape forms are kind of like polite requests with kudasai. How polite really is like suwanaide kudasai?
吸わないでください
Tobacco
is
suwanaide kudasai.
fairly strong.
Really?
Yeah, the negative, it's like, please don't do it.
Okay.
So that's fairly strong. Something less concrete, something more ambiguous, like すみません or それはちょっと is politer because it's less definite.
Because
Okay.
you hear kudasai and you think it's immediately polite.
Yeah, well, kudasai still qualifies as neutral polite. It's on the same level with des and mas, which means it's middle of the road polite. It's not super honorific. Yeah.
But it would be more polite if you're saying suwanaide.
Yeah, suwanaide kudasai is, yeah, well, it's politer than just suwanaide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That to me sounds
Dropping the kudasai makes it a lot more casual.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. So we're going to let Dorima-san ask Ichiban, and Sandan-san is going to respond to Ichiban.
Let me see where I'm at again.
Okay, bottom of page 158. 夜 電話をかける。Okay?
夜電話をかけ思い出すをか
か
け
けて、yeah.
Wait a minute. 夜電話をかけて思い出すか
And then you're gonna either ask, give or deny permission.
いいですよ、どうぞ。
はい、いいですね。Okay, わかりますか? So, 夜電話をかけてもいいですか? Anyone have an idea why it might not be okay with somebody for you to make phone calls at night?
It's loud.
Yeah.
Expensive if you're calling off of their landline. That's
But
one
people are
possibility.
sleeping.
People are sleeping and the walls are thin. That's probably a big reason, especially since people tend to talk too loud on their cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
And Japanese homes, especially the more traditional construction, the walls are literally paper thin. I mean,
Yeah.
the dividers between rooms are sometimes basically cardboard dividers that are, movable sliding wall pieces. They're kind of like our sliding glass doors, but made out of what is essentially thick cardboard. And so sound travels from room to room really easily. Usually the doors just butt up against each other like this. There's no true seal, so there's nothing even close to soundproofing from room to room.
Well, it's not only going to be a kind of weathering problem too, like rain or stuff gets.
Yeah. So, well, we're talking about the interior rooms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exterior they have a different kind of construction for those doors. But even there, usually their solution to that problem is that there's a veranda about as wide as this space between the desk and the wall here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if this is this side of the house, the doors here are made out of wood and very often paper shoji that lets in some light but blocks vision. And then the veranda and the roof come to about here, so that keeps most of the driving rain and stuff out. There's a fair bit of space there, but in a traditional construction house, yeah, everything's built so that you can open it all up in the summertime and have cross breezes, because AC did not exist 100 years ago. So,
Right.
and then very often there'll be what they call amado, which are rain doors on the outside part of the veranda, and these are a sturdier wooden construction that can be closed, and they're like rain shutters, and they do a better job of keeping out the weather. And you close those and these, and you've got a corridor along the outside edges of your house that becomes insulation in the cold months, so that you've got some slightly warmer air before you get to the outside, and the interior of the house retains more of its heat because of this barrier here.
So you could like change.
And in the summertime, that shade creates cooler breezes coming into your house. When you open it all up, you've still got shade.
So is it the same for like the northern areas of Japan where it's colder?
That's a fairly typical sort of central Japan and southern Japan construction. The northern farmhouses were constructed differently because they were a lot more worried about snow and a lot less worried about summer heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could probably change out the doors in the houses, like open it up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but that's a traditional, old-fashioned construction. Modern homes with electricity and AC aren't necessarily constructed that way anymore. Although there are still families who prefer a traditional style construction and will have it built that way.
Except they still install electricity. And
Yeah,
AC,
they still have electricity, but most Japanese homes don't necessarily have central AC or heat. They have space heaters or room AC units for a particular room, and the rest of the house doesn't really have anything. So they'll have like an AC/heater installed for the family room, say, because that's the main room where the socializing and the eating are going to happen, and then the rest of the house is just natural air currents and whatever the temperature happens to be.
So is it really hot sometimes?
It can get extremely hot. It gets Florida hot in the summer.
Wow.
Yeah, and in the winter time, depending on where in Japan you are, you might get small amounts of snow, or you might get
Towers.
this much snow, depending on which part of Japan you're in.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So does southern Japan get snow at all?
yeah, because even in the south, it's a mountainous volcanic island, and so you go up even just a little bit of altitude, and all of a sudden you're back into a range where you can get snow. So some of the coastal cities don't ever get snow, but you
mountainous
go
areas,
inland,
yeah.
and going inland by definition is also going up in most of Japan. And so, yeah, you get up into the mountains and you better believe it, there's snow. I was in the southernmost island of Kyushu, in one of the more southern districts of Kagoshima Prefecture, which is the southernmost part, but it was up in the mountains. And so because it was in the mountains, even though it was March, there was still snow on the ground in patches, little bits and pieces. You could see places where it had stayed shady there. So the snow hadn't melted yet, even though it was mid-March. So there was, little patches, that thick and that big around under this tree over here, under that tree over there, because it just hadn't had a chance to melt yet.
Icebergs in March.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hi.
I was going to say that there's something else I've seen in winter
Mhm.
that's generally like the main room of the house. They have
Mhm.
this
The kotatsu?
that's
Oh,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
heated table things, right?
Yeah, kotatsu. Sorry, what am I doing? Kotatsu. Basically, here's your table, little itty bitty table legs, stick figure person sitting with,
Cup of tea.
cup of tea or whatever. There's a quilt that's coming off of the table like this, and an extra tabletop on top of that, so that you still have a flat surface to put your dishes and things on. And underneath here, depending on, this is the floor level. If it's a more modern house, it probably is just floor level with a heat lamp here, radiating heat on everybody's toes. And if it's a traditional old-fashioned house, instead of a heat lamp,
It would be
you might
inside
actually
the
have
floor.
a pit that, it's made so that they can fit covers over it for the months when they're not going to use the kotatsu, so that you don't lose that floor space all year long. But during the months when you are going to use the kotatsu, you've got a pit there that your feet can go down to.
So you
like
just
that.
lower the floorboards or
And down
something?
here, they remove a piece of floor that's made to come out, and there's a
Oh,
hole
okay.
underneath it. And the hole has, in the very old houses, like embers
Fire.
from a real coal fire. In the more modern houses, it might be some sort of modern electrical heater or something down here, and it's radiating heat upwards at everybody's feet.
Oh, I always thought that the heater was always built into the table.
No, not necessarily. That's a modern version of it for homes that are not built with a pit.
What's it called again?
Kotatsu. Kotatsu. And yeah, and the quilt is to help trap the heat on the sides of the table. It's a big quilt that covers the table with extra room to spare, so that everybody can kind of crowd around that table and get the quilt up over their laps and keep
Yeah.
the bottom half warm. And then you usually wear a quilted jacket on the top half to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's a chilly enough day, you grab your winter scarf or something and wrap it around your neck, because those, the quilted jackets are sort of like kimono style, so that they're like open down the front, and they've got a little tie to tie and close in the front, but it doesn't completely close the gap, because it's worn over whatever else you're wearing.
So, wait,
I
well,
still have
obviously
one
you couldn't,
somewhere.
well, you obviously couldn't do this with a pit version, but with the modern versions, couldn't you just like get up all inside the quilt, just like your head sticking out?
People sometimes do, but that's hogging the whole thing. So if you're sitting
Yeah.
around with friends, you don't do that. But there are people who sometimes take a nap under the kotatsu. Just slide all the way under.
How big are the kotatsus usually?
It depends on the family and how big a space they have, but A table that's
Like this?
not much bigger than this is not unusual if it's a smaller family or a smaller home. Because you've got to remember, Japanese homes are often fairly
Right,
cramped. I mean, this classroom is bigger than my best friend's first apartment after she and her husband got married.
Wow.
Yeah, this classroom is bigger than their whole apartment was, including the genkan and the balcony for hanging out laundry.
The Genkan?
Genkan is the entryway where you take your shoes off.
Right.
Yeah, the whole thing would have fit probably in this much of the classroom. The whole thing, and that included
Yikes.
a teeny tiny little bathroom, a teeny tiny little laundry area, a teeny tiny little kitchen, and a single living room space that doubled as a bedroom at
And they
night.
picked up their bed in the morning.
Yeah, they rolled up their bedding in the morning and put it in the storage closet or hung it out over the balcony if it needed airing out.
Was it still as high as this, or was it even like shorter?
It was shorter.
Like blackboard, like the top of the blackboard type?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't bumping my head on stuff in their apartment, but I've been in Japanese homes where I was bumping my head on doorways because it was the older construction and I was too tall for their house.
Guess being short has its perks, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, but not everybody's house is that short, that small, but the old couple that I visited one time, that both of them had osteoporosis so bad that they were bent over like this. And they were probably only about 4'9" when they were not bent over yet. Both of them, the man and the woman, they were the same size.
It's shorter than I am.
And yeah, they were teeny tiny, and they were in their 80s probably, and this was in the 1980s. So they were born around the turn of the last century, and they were tiny, and everything in their house was kind of kept low enough that they could reach it. So they had like a bamboo roll-up room divider that was just a visual barrier, it wasn't going to block anything. But they only had it rolled up enough for them to not have to duck themselves. So I kept bumping my head on it when I was visiting their house because it was rolled to just about here. So I kept having to duck to get from one room to the next because, you know, she was inviting me in and out. Yeah. So, and yeah, if you're 6 foot, watch out because a lot of doorways into rooms in the older houses especially, the door lintel is right at like 5'8" or so. So
Well, at least I won't
my
have any
dad
problems.
was doing this on doorways everywhere he went.
I feel like there's like a bruise like right there.
Yeah. So we're actually out of time. So
Oh.
for next class, I want you guys to start from C3.
2C.
So, yeah, so it's Roman numeral 2, part C is where we're going to start from. So let me look at. Okay, so
So
that's
we,
next
for
class.
the actual grade, we actually have to do all the exercises in here?
Yes, for the actual grade, you do all of them, but for next class, come ready to do that pair work activity where we're going to do it, you know, like Sandlin asks Haley, Haley asks Kruin the next one, Kruin asks Joe the next one, and so forth.
Right.
And then we'll go on to part 3, which is the Tewa Ikemasen segment. And hopefully we'll also get into the te form where they're connecting to actions. Asa okite, kohi o nomimasu. And then, wait a minute. Yeah, this is saying that we're supposed to be finishing this chapter already. It doesn't look like we're going to have time to finish.
I was actually just about to ask, when
I-
does all
I-
this need to get done?
Let me see what.
Because I think it said June 2nd, but I'm horrible with days.
Yeah. Okay, next class, we need to finish as much of this chapter as we can. If we have to, which would you guys rather do? Cover one less chapter this semester and cover it more thoroughly? Or try to cram through and get it all in?
really just depends. What chapter are we talking?
Well, if we don't have time to finish, we might only get through lesson 9 instead of lesson 10.
And what is lesson 10? Just curious.
Comparisons. It talks about how to compare, like one thing is bigger than another, or I like such and such better than something else. And it also talks about in said group or in a group of 3 or more items, this is what I like the best, or this is the one that's the largest, or that's the one that's the cheapest or whatever.
I think we should go slower and more thoroughly.
Yeah, I
The
agree.
slower
Yeah.
and more thoroughly,
Really
is
slow.
that?
That'd be good.
Especially if you want to do what you were talking about last time with the speaking practice.
Yeah, I want us
Yeah.
to do a lot more speaking practice.
Best get what
and
we can
Yeah.
down pat.
I
rather
want
than-
us to at least get through lesson 9 because chapters 8 and 9 are the ones that go into short forms and casual speech. And I feel like that's really important. I want you guys to have casual speech before we finish this semester. I think that's an important foundational skill for second semester students to get. But if we can't do chapter 10, it's okay with me because my plan going forward is actually going to be lessons 1 through 4 more thoroughly for my level 1 class and 5 through 9 as thoroughly as possible for my level 2 class. But we need to at least get through lesson 9.
There is
So that way you guys will be on the same track with future groups of level 2 so that if you end up combining with other groups for level 3, hopefully you're all on the same page.
I was about to ask. There is a Japanese 3 course offered here at this campus, right?
Yes. It should be available this fall.
Oh,
So,
nice.
and I've got, besides the 9 of you, 9, there's also 3 people who took level 2 as an independent study last semester. Who I'm hoping will all want to come back for 3 in the fall. So we should have enough people to have a level 3 class that makes, because, they made an exception because it's summer, letting a class run with only 9 people registered instead of 10, but
So
normally the
glad they did.
minimum is 10. So we're lucky you joined us, because they might have canceled it out from under us if there had only been 8.
I was actually wondering whether to actually sign up for the class because I didn't want to do an independent study, but I just signed up. Hey, if it turns out to be an independent study, I can just pull out. So.
Right. So, well, it wouldn't have shown up the way it did if it were an independent study. You would have had to go and re-register after it got canceled.
I tried an independent study class. I did not like it.
Down
Do
there.
you still need motor?
Okay.
Shut
No,
up, buddy.
no, it's the same as the homework. He's trying to clarify what we're supposed to do for the homework.
Okay, all of it,
Yeah, all of it.
Yep.
all of it.
Everything.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was like, I might as well change it up.
This time, probably, it's a few minutes before 5, so
Well, just because since I graduated last semester technically,
Okay.
I have to send my final transcript with my AA on it.
Oh,
So
okay.
I said I would be able to graduate.
Right, okay. Yeah, go downstairs, there should still be somebody there, I think.
Alright. Time to make a phone call.
Oh, yeah, let me give you back your book. Thank you for the loan.
Oh, no problem. I have a question about one of the homework things. Oh, this one. Are we supposed to answer it in that format with
Yeah.
like 4 different lines?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's what they were looking for. I mean, if you want to expand on that even further, you certainly could. But yeah, the goal there is to practice that you have somebody makes a comment, somebody replies to that, and then somebody replies to that.
So it's kind of like a little conversation
Yeah.
for each question?
Yeah,
Okay.
what we're doing is we're building up your skills so that if you can do question and answer, next can you do question and answer spontaneously where they just give you an idea to work from instead of writing out what you're supposed to say. And then can you do question and answer and then reply and response, 2 for each like this. Can you do that when there's a script? And then eventually build on to the idea of being able to just be given an idea of what to talk about, and you come up with a question, your friend answers it, and you respond to whatever their answer was, even though it wasn't a scripted answer. So we're building up to that,
All right.
because that's the goal, right? I mean, you want to be able to talk to a Japanese friend, and they're not going to be working from a script.
Yes. All right. See you Thursday.
Okay, see you Thursday.